Okay, welcome everybody. It's 9 o'clock. We'll give people just another couple minutes as the waiting room begins filling up again. We won't make them wait as long as you guys were waiting. In the meantime, we expect this to be a large, well-attended meeting. Last year when we did the Zoom advisory committee meeting, it was only a couple weeks into the lockdown, and we're figuring out how to run these meetings, and had over 100 people attending. Expecting at least that many today. Oops, we have some rules about how we're going to try to control the meeting, but make sure that it goes smoothly. I let you all know, as you probably already realized, the meeting will be recorded, is being recorded. You probably heard that when you logged in. I hope it's recording. And it will be available on YouTube as usual. We have muted everybody. And that's because, as we experience we've gained with Zoom calls over the past year, it's a lot easier certainly to do presentations. And if only one person is talking at a time. At the end of the presentations, we will first unmute the advisory committee members to ask questions and provide for discussion. You're only seeing the bottom 2/3 of my face. And we have the chat function, which is available. If you type in something to the chat, for instance, if you tell me that you can only see the bottom 2/3 of my face, then I will see that, although the rest of the world cannot. And we'll try to take your questions through chat. If you really need to verbalize something, we can unmute other people as well, but we'll try to keep this going. And if there are questions in chat that we don't get to because of time, we want to respect the time we've put aside for this. We will try to address them. Notice I didn't say answer them, but at least address them on the website, in the web posting, and associated with the YouTube video as well. And last, we are going to probably have technical glitches, not the least of which will be the time it will take to unmute to find them on the list and unmute them. So I ask you in advance for patience, and hopefully we won't mess this up. Going into the future, we are, let's see, we'll stop the share for a second. Going into the future, we will probably be doing switching platforms. We have a GoToWebinar account, and I think we'll be switching over there. And in our weekly office hours, we'll probably be testing that out, getting ready for the big show. So all of this continues to be in flux. It's been an interesting year. And I think we have quite a few people now, and it is 9:05, so let's get underway. Again, send any questions or observations or anything like, Paul, I can't see you, or Paul or Liz, I can't hear you. Let us know, and we'll try to fix things as we move around. Good to see you all as I move the windows around and actually see you. Thank you for keeping your video on. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Which you should. It's kind of weird actually not having the instant feedback of people being unmuted. So those are the rules. Again, we're recording. Okay, today we're hoping to adjourn around 11 o'clock. We'll go through program updates, the audit findings for the multi-lab audit. Janine Simpson will join us to talk a little bit about DEP's focus on environmental justice, and that will segue nicely into our thoughts about refreshing the Wayside Cleanup Advisory Committee and how we hold meetings and how we seek input from you guys. And then we'll talk a little bit about grant programs that are kind of up and coming, have been either implemented in the last year and will continue or will be taken up again this year. So money, stick around for the money. So for the program updates, a couple things wanted to talk about. One was the status of the MCP amendments, referred to as the 2019 amendments. And you may notice that we are now in 2021. We are most of the way through the edits and the revisions and the comments. It has taken quite a while, and I don't want to keep blaming COVID for everything, but that is a convenient excuse. But in addition, the fact that we take quite a while to read your comments, try to understand your comments, and make appropriate changes is one of the reasons why it does take some period of time. Liz Callahan has been leading that effort and doing a very diligent job going through, understanding the comments, organizing them, preparing response to comments, and making the changes, any changes. We're not agreeing with all the comments, but making a lot of changes in response to the comments, and then making sure that those changes, in fact, don't create some unforeseen issues as well. We hope to, given the progress that has been made and where we are, I think later this spring is when it will be going through the senior management review process that is required of all final regulations, and will be public after that, and will be implemented after that. There will, of course, be an implementation period so that everybody can read the changes and get ready for them as well. And there'll be training associated with that. People have also been curious about the MassDEP sampling for PFAS in public and private drinking water supplies. You may have heard about this, certainly on our weekly office hour calls, if you've been tuning in there. The legislature provided DEP with substantial funding to conduct free sampling in public and private drinking water supplies. For the public water supplies, well, step back. All of this is actually being run through our drinking water program. We have contracts with UMass Amherst and Lowell to help with the logistics of conducting this. So we are in the process of doing free sampling for every public water supply in the state, certainly starting with the biggest ones, but they're making great progress on that. As you know, the MCL went into effect last October. The sampling requirements started taking effect this January. So all of the public water supplies will have to have been sampled for PFAS in sometime in the near future, and DEP is providing funding for the first round of that sampling. So that's going ahead full steam. On the private water supply side of things, the purpose of the private water supply sampling is not to sample every single private water supply in the state. We don't have funding for that. We want to use this funding in order to get a good sense of the concentrations and the distribution of PFAS out there in groundwater across the state. We have a lot of sampling so far that's been done. It's been mostly focused around either known sources or known affected drinking water supplies. We're going to use this project to get a sense of the PFAS levels, if they're there, across the entire state. We're doing this working in cooperation with the local boards of health, who are, of course, stressed by other factors. So it was a little bit slow getting off the mark, but we've been meeting over the past couple of months sequentially with a number of local boards of health in the 80 or so towns that rely primarily upon private wells as a source of drinking water. And we're working with them to identify both areas within town which may be near, close by possible sources of PFAS, and some of the sampling will be concentrated around those sources. But we also are using a grid pattern to get a good distribution across each of the towns, so that we have some samples unbiased by location or suspect sources, so we get a good sense of what is out there generally, kind of background levels of PFAS in the groundwater. The way we're finding volunteers for this process is putting on the web and trying to advertise, driving people to a DEP website, which will take potential volunteers. We've been sending out postcards to private well owners, and then from among those volunteers, depending upon their location and how they fit into the grid pattern, individual homeowners will be selected for participation in this. There will be information packets delivered to them so that they have a better understanding of kind of what's involved in all of this, including what might happen should elevated concentrations of PFAS be found in their drinking water. If they then agree to continue in the process, they will be sent packages from the laboratory with instructions on how to sample the water. There's instructional video on our YouTube channel. And once the samples come back, depending upon what the results are, there's a bunch of outreach material available, and DEP will be working very closely with the homeowners, depending upon, and how we work with them and what we do will depend upon the results that come out. So it's a very exciting time. If you go to the MassDEP PFAS webpage, there's a lot of information there related to both the public and the private drinking water supplies sampling. A lot of the results are in for the public water supply sampling. So there's actually some good data available there that's updated weekly, so you can track the progress of that as it goes along. There will be similar results for the private water supplies once those results start coming in at a faster rate. I think the first 10 may have come in just recently. The last one I want to talk about is the Brownfields Tax Credit. I don't really want to talk about this, but people keep asking about it, so I will. I'll update you. Again, these are not, I've said this over and over, reminding people that the Brownfields Tax Credit is administered through the Department of Revenue. It is not a DEP tax credit. It's something that we implement. We work with our sister agency, the Department of Revenue, certainly when asked, both on individual cases and on a broader perspective, but our involvement is to respond to their specific questions. As you know, the DOR put out proposed regulations in January. The public comment period closed in mid-February. They received a number of comments, and they're looking at those comments, going through a similar process, what we do with the MCP revisions. In addition, people have also indicated concern to other places in state government, including administration of the Executive Office of Administration and Finance, and the Governor's Office and Lieutenant Governor's Office. So there is a separate but related effort that is in place. The Lieutenant Governor and Administration and Finance convened an interagency work group that includes DOR, ANF, the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, MassDEP, and Housing and Economic Development. And that group has conducted a couple listening sessions where many of you have been invited to come and speak about the tax credit. We've heard specific things certainly about the regulations, but the focus of these listening sessions was really intended to be bigger picture. How is it working? Are there any even more basic changes that could be made to improve the function and the application of the tax credit and make sure that it continues to serve its purpose as envisioned by the legislature? So that work will continue. I think the schedule is they expect to have some results, some outcome within a couple months, and we'll see how that goes. And yesterday I received in the mail, as many of you probably did, priorities from the LSPA, from a member survey, and I think many of the things we just talked about line up with some of those concerns, and some of these other issues will certainly be taken up in the next year or so. But I just wanted to put that up there to acknowledge that other people also have priorities and concerns and curious about where the program is going, and we are paying attention, listening to those as well. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and pass this over to Ken Maurer and Liz Callahan to talk about the multi-lab data audit, unless there are any questions, I guess. And I think there. Okay, I'm going to read this. I'm not even sure it's a question. This is the problem of like speaking and looking at the chat. As Board of Health member in LSP, there are some key concerns we voiced to DEP and UMass folks during our discussion. In front and center, provided with LSPA letters, a preference for homeowner exemption from reporting for PFAS in the absence of identified source of release. No DPS option because no upgraded source identified, or a blind identification of samples to correlate to a sensor tract or area in a town versus an individual homeowner. Okay, there are many repercussions to identify even detectable levels of PFAS in a private well. A couple issues there, and I think we're actually addressing those questions. And if it didn't come across in the discussions with the Board of Health, then we'll try better in the next time. First, one of the things I think we tried to make clear in the letters that what are going out to the homeowners is that there is a notification requirement given the regulations. We are being very clear that the homeowner is authorizing one arm of DEP to notify the other arm of DEP and satisfy that notification requirement. The homeowner does not have to do anything for that. So there's no, we will have been notified. So that checks that box in the regulations. After notification, DEP is not planning to automatically issue notices of responsibility to homeowners. We're going on the presumption that the homeowners have downgradient property status, that they are in fact the downgradient recipients of some upgradient source in the absence of some other, any other factors. And we are holding in abeyance any required work for that location until we have a better understanding of what's going on. The purpose of this whole sampling effort is really a research effort to try to figure out what are the levels that are out there in the world, where it might be coming from. And to the extent that the PFAS might be coming from things like, and I'll rattle off some things that the LSPA did mention in their letter, things like atmospheric deposition, things like septic systems, background levels in soil that lead to background levels in groundwater. That all, we're holding in abeyance any notices of responsibilities and bringing in these locations until we have a better sense of what's going on and likely have a PRP related to the source that would be associated with that. Okay, so I'm going to stop there so we don't get too off schedule. And Ken, are you still muted?
All Ken does not have the ability to unmute himself.
I know you have, the host, you or me, has to
Oh,
find.
I'm good. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I did it.
It just,
So just as a matter of, Liz and I are playing hosts here. To unmute people, Liz, we have to find them in the list
Okay.
of participants and hit the ask to unmute button.